All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Keck from Berlin PD in New Mexico, 21 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to our conversation today. So, welcome to the show, Chief Keck. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of
Appreciate it.
course. Of course. Yeah, thank you for being here. I know that you've been in this career for over 2 decades, and I'd like to play a little game called Peek and Pit. So I would love if you could give a little bit of background on yourself and maybe some of your biggest successes and also some of your greatest challenges throughout the last 21 years.
Well, when I started in Albuquerque and I didn't complete the OJT, which is on the job training, and I got flushed out of that system from them. And then I came here in Berlin in 2005. So, I mean, I guess that's one success is coming from a failure and then from that department, which is a larger department. And granted, I grew up in the country,
Yeah.
so I didn't have the street smarts like in Albuquerque because I lived out in the middle of nowhere growing up in Kentucky. So, um, but I guess anytime that's one success
I love
because
that.
you could come from failure to success. And then when I got here, I just worked my tail off and the chief liked me and I moved up. I became a detective and then narcotics investigator and then sergeant and then detective sergeant and then lieutenant. So I guess if anybody's out there and you think that your failure can keep you from succeeding, well, don't let it because that's just a lie.
I love that. And I completely agree with you. I think that arguably some of my biggest failures have been the opportunity to grow and to be better and have turned into the biggest successes. And having that mindset of, just because you don't succeed in one area does not mean that you can't succeed in the future. And you have to have that mentality and that drive to get up and to keep going. How
Mhm.
did you find that motivation to say, hey, like maybe this wasn't successful, but I am going to get up, I am going to keep going, and I am going to find myself in a leadership position one day.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know I was gonna, excuse me, be a leader to begin with. I was just hoping to get on. But when I came here, the excuse me, the chief that I had working here, um, he saw the potential. And so it's always good that when you have a good leader within your department, his name was Mike Chavez. Um, when you have somebody that's a good leader within your department and they can see the potential in their employees, I think that's a great asset for a leader is to look at the potential of what people can become instead of what they were.
Mm, I love that of what they can become instead of what they were. Do you think that because you had someone in leadership who looked out for you and believed in you and, maybe in a way mentored you, do you think that that impacted the way that you lead today, that that influenced your leadership approach?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
I love that. And I think that that's a good reminder to anyone who's listening. It's like you have that ability. You have that ability to impact other people's lives. And when you do that, it's a snowball effect.
Mhm.
You had someone who looked out for you and was like, you know what, I see potential in you, and I'm going to nurture that so that you can become your greatest potential, whatever that looks like. And now you, as a leader, are going to display those same traits, right? You're going to say the same thing to someone else underneath of you, like, "Hey, I see your potential, and I'm going to help to cultivate, your skills and to make sure that you strive and for the best possible, position within the organization." And I would imagine that the person underneath of you that you do that to is going to do the same thing. So you have the ability to create that snowball effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you did, I know because we talked offline a little bit. You've been in this career 21 years. You worked nights and weekends, and we talked about the toll that that takes on you physically and mentally. How did you navigate that? What were some things that you experienced, and how did you, combat those things physically and mentally?
Well, for one, it was just like sleep deprivation. I mean,
Mm,
one time in my career, I had to work swing shift and night shift all in the same week, and it was very, very difficult to adapt. Luckily, the good thing I did have was youth because I'm not as young as I was, but um, it did definitely help. How I overcame it would be just hopefully, I mean, on the weekends, I would use the same, or I mean, on my weekends, which would be during the week, I would just keep that same pattern of sleep schedule and um, adaptivity for my regular life on that schedule. Um, that was about, I mean, that's about the only thing I could really say.
yeah. And we know that sleep is so important. And when you don't sleep,
Mhm.
it affects everything. It affects your mood, your productivity, your decision making, and it really is it's a huge challenge because when we're dealing with shift work, um, sometimes you can't really control that piece of it, right? And so it's like, what can you do to get in front of it? And to your point, I have heard that that's a really good strategy to try to maintain the same schedule even on your days off, which is also a challenge, especially if you have a family, right?
Mhm.
It's like if you're
Right.
working nights and then on your days off, you want to be up during the day because you want to spend time with your family. And so I think that that is one of the biggest challenges. It's like how do you manage that, especially if you're working nights and especially if you have a family? Like how do you maintain that schedule? It's hard. I don't know what the solve is.
Well, luckily, I mean, I don't have, I don't really have a family per se.
Mhm.
I mean, I have a bunch of friends,
Mhm.
but I don't have wife and the kids, and then I don't, my family doesn't live here. So it was just adapting to my friends and letting them know, hey, I can't really do this. I gotta get some rest. And I've also heard that you can't really, what do you want to call it? Um, you can't make up sleeper. What'd be the term? So if you lost sleep, if you haven't slept in 24 days or 24 hours, 24 days, oh my gosh, you'd probably be dead. But if you haven't slept in 24 hours, you can't make that up. So you could,
Right.
even if you slept 10 hours, you're not making that difference up.
You're already in a deficit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. And I would argue that sleep is maybe number one. Like,
Mhm.
and it's also maybe the number one challenge, especially with, varying shifts. And we know that young officers are usually the ones that are going to be put on nights and weekends. And I think to your point, maybe youth is in your benefit, but I still think it impacts everybody.
Right.
I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the strategies that you've used just in general over the years for your wellness? I know that we talked a little bit offline about your faith being important and spiritual wellness. Maybe you can give a little bit of insight into that.
Well, yeah, my faith is a big thing for me. Just to be in the word of God and then to pray and then have mentors that feed into that.
Mm,
Uh, like one of my friends, he was a pastor of a local church, and I was going through a very anxious time and with the chief at the time, and I was just very stressed out, I guess you could say. And I went over there. They have a cafe, grounded cafe, and I went over there and I was like, he's like, man, how are you doing? You look stressed out. And I was like, I am. I You wouldn't believe it. I'm going crazy. And when I went up to read somewhere in the church, it said Philippians 4:6. It said, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, in prayer and supplication, give it to God. And I was like, okay. So I just said, God, I give it to you. And I mean, it was like a brick
Mm,
off my shoulders, like the whole load came off. And I told him about it, and he's like, we don't even have that anywhere in our church. He's like, I work here. I haven't seen that. And I was like, well, I couldn't find it either, but I was like, it was there. So,
interesting. I know that, we talk about pillars of wellness and, you have physical, mental, financial, and spiritual is oftentimes one of those pillars. And I think that there's maybe not a lot of focus on that area. We talk about chaplaincy and things like that. And I've had some other conversations where, agencies maybe allow for church on duty if calls allow for it and different things like that. But I love that you said this was something that's really helped me and something that helped to take a weight off of my shoulders. And I think that it's a testament that there's not one pillar that's going to work for everybody. And so that's why you have all of the different ones, like maybe for someone, it's working out and that helps to alleviate that stress. And maybe for someone else, it's going to church and, it's leaning on your spirituality and, like you said, being able to give that weight to, whoever is your, God or whatever you see. And so I think that, it's a really good reminder to anyone who's listening that it's not a one size fits all, and it's okay to reach out for whatever resource is going to give you that. Because that comment of like, I felt lighter and I felt less stressed and I felt like I could breathe, that's what we're looking for. Like when it comes to wellness, like that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that ability to decompress and to alleviate that stress that you're feeling.
right. But I also work out as well. I mean, you probably, if I stood up, you probably couldn't tell, but hey, but yeah, I do work out too. It's definitely a good stress reliever.
It's interesting because I was just I worked out this morning, so I'm a firm believer in like practice what you preach, right? And like if I'm gonna sit here and say, hey, wellness is important, physical, mental, nutritional, all these things are important, but I'm not practicing that myself. I feel personally like that's hypocritical of me to have this platform of podcast saying, hey, do this, and then I don't do it myself. And so the way I've been able to do this is really early mornings because my schedule doesn't allow for me to do it during the day. So I started waking up very early. I usually wake up 4:30 in the morning, and I'll go and I'll work out. And I work out on my own, but then I also have a trainer that I work with twice a week. And the trainer pushes me way harder than I would push myself. But I did that this morning. And the entire time I'm thinking, this is giving me more stress because it was so hard. I was like, this is not what I want to do. I feel like this sucks. And then I like afterwards felt so much better. And I think it's like this moment of like, you do kind of have to go through the hard things and you have to push to be able to like come out the other end and feel better and to feel more physically and mentally resilient. But in the moment, like when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and someone's yelling at me to do more, I don't know if maybe
Right.
it's the most fun. So I think
Um,
it's also a reminder to everyone that like sometimes it takes dedication over motivation.
oh, absolutely. You're true on that.
I don't think that wellness, I mean, I think that you can find joy in everything. I don't know if wellness is always fun in the moment. I think that wellness feels good after, though. And I think that's what we're aiming for. What is the result? Because the
Mhm.
action of doing it might not be the the best, if you have to sit and meditate or, and your mind's going crazy, or if you're choosing a salad over a burger, or if you're, like all those
Mhm.
things, like maybe aren't necessarily fun in the moment, but it's the result of feeling better after is what we're aiming for. So if you can maybe forward think a little bit and say, you know what, like I'm excited for how I'm going to feel after this, then maybe that's a little bit of that motivation to do the hard thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the same as like sometimes I don't feel like I want to read the
Mhm.
Bible or pray, but I have to say, you know what? I'm gonna do it because it does make me better.
Yep.
Helps me be in communion with God. Or yeah, working out. I don't want to work. I just started to do getting up at 4:30 to get here and work out. Probably not as much as you do, probably only about a half hour. But um, and then I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, I do not want to wake up. Shut up, alarm.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard and it takes like more it's just discipline, right? It's like I heard someone say that you have like I think it's 5 seconds in the morning and
Uh-huh.
you have to like say like basically count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm getting up. And you don't give like your mind that like opportunity to start telling you, because here's the thing, like the mind is always going to take the path of least resistance. Always. It's always going to say like, let's sleep in because it's comfortable. It feels good, like let's not do that thing that's really hard. Let's take the easy route, let's eat the sugar,
Right.
not the protein. It's always going to try to take the path of least resistance. And then it's up to you and me to decide, am I going to let my mind have control over me or am I going to have control over my mind? And that takes awareness. And so
Mhm.
while it is hard, like I am a huge snoozer. If you let me, I will snooze that alarm for hours. I will snooze it 4 or 5 times if I let myself. And so I've had to have certain strategies like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of like, nope, I'm getting up to help me through
Mhm.
that. And then, like we said, the result is worth it. I've regretted so many times not going to the gym, but I've never regretted going to the gym. And so it's
Right.
it's kind of that idea of like trying to take over that power and control over your mind when it wants to do the easy things. Easier
Absolutely.
said than done.
Yeah. Well, I have to put my alarm. I'm old school, so I have an alarm clock and I put it on the other side of the room. So I have to get up to turn it off or to put it on snooze. So,
Yeah. I used to
but sometimes I still go back. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to wake up.
I was gonna say that because I've done that before where I put it in the other room and I just snoozed it and went back to bed. I've had to really train myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sometimes it works. Yeah.
well, I know organizationally that you guys have implemented a few things to support your team's wellness, EAP, free gym membership, psychiatric partnerships. If you could maybe explain some of those things that you've done that have been successful, maybe the result that you've seen from those things, and maybe what is still the biggest challenge you think in wellness and implementing resources.
Well, one of our guys, his wife owns a gym. She's a personal trainer, so in that he wants the best for excuse me, for the officers. He wants to work with the best, so he gives us free membership. And of course, health plan has also membership as well.
Mhm.
But regardless, he lets us go over there and work out. And then so do other gyms. The city has one too. And then we're getting a new PD, and hopefully within a year we'll have it up and we'll have a gym in there as well. Um, EAP, I really don't have much results on that because they don't really tell us.
Yeah.
But I am looking into. I have a buddy I went to the academy with at Albuquerque Police Department, and he's now a doctor in. I don't know if he's a psychologist or psychiatrist, but I'm trying to work with him where we can get what would you call it, a contract. So if any of my guys want to go up there, they can just go up there without having to pay or anything, without coming out of insurance, or
Nice.
just go up there and talk to him. Um, and then we also have another one in Albuquerque as well. It's called this Public Safety Psychology Group, and they do the same thing. But we do have, with that group, we have a debriefing. They'll come down here anytime we want if we need, and they'll debrief any situation with us and the our dispatchers, because sometimes we forget about our dispatchers. They don't see the outcome, they don't see the ending. Us as officers, we see the ending, they don't see the ending, so we try to let them come in it on our debriefing as well.
I appreciate the approach of including everybody because I do think that you guys are a team, and if you don't have dispatch, you can't really operate, right? And so it's
Right.
remembering the vital role that everyone is playing within the organization and making sure that everyone feels supported from a wellness perspective. And I've had a lot of conversations with dispatchers, and um, I've had some that are like, "Yep, I'm good. Like, I don't need to close that loop. Like, I feel good. Like, I couldn't control it anyway, so like on to the next." And I've had other dispatchers that are like, I really, really like when officers come in and like tell me the result of what happened. Like that helps me mentally to close that loop and to move on. And so I think it goes back to that idea that it's not a one size fits all, and some people are going to need different resources than others. And so having that like holistic, like, hey, we're going to make sure that we're taking care of everybody and we have different options so that everyone feels supported in their own personal wellness.
No, yeah, exactly. Our old chief, Harris, he started that. And before we never really did that. We kind of did a personal debriefing, but he started that with our agency and dispatch, and I liked it, and it does help. It helps. It helped me, and dispatch loves it, so
Good.
we'll continue doing that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you think is still the biggest challenge in wellness? And this could be like just across the board, just wellness in general, or it could be organizationally.
I would personally time. I mean, a lot of officers you go to, you have work night, especially if you work nights, then you have court, and then you got to find time to sleep because obviously you got to have physical wellness. Because if you don't sleep, the immune system depreciates, and then you're going to be sick all the time. So I would say time is
Mhm.
probably the number one thing. And then also discipline will be the second, because you might have time, but then you might not be disciplined to find the time that you do have, because everybody has the same amount of 24 hours. So discipline in our life would be this, probably, in my opinion, the second.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Right.
Because it does go back to, well, are you getting enough sleep? Because we don't want to cut into sleep time, especially if you aren't getting enough already. Do you have a family that you're trying to juggle? Are you working a lot of overtime because either your agency is short or because maybe your spending wasn't the best?
Mhm.
And now you're kind of forced into overtime to be able to pay the bills. Um, like you said, are you just not utilizing your time in the most effective way? And I think that again, like it's not it's not a one size fits all. We got to look at the individual and
Correct.
say, okay, like, well, what is going on here? And then how can we make it work to where we're actually supporting your wellness? Because to say like, hey, like you need to do this, and it's like, hey, like I'm working overtime and then like I'm not
Mhm.
sleeping because I'm working overtime and I have core and then I have my family. So like how can we? I do think that generally, and I can look at my schedule too, right? I can sit here and say, hey, I'm working, 15 to 18-hour days, which I typically do. And I can say I don't have any time. I do have time,
Mhm.
but sometimes I use that time to watch Netflix or
Right.
scroll on Instagram. Could I be more disciplined during those times? Absolutely. But like you said, it's that dedication, that discipline, and the
Mhm.
awareness of the utilization of time. Um, and so for me, what has worked for me, because I know that at the end of a day, after working a 15-hour day, I am not going to go do anything. I know
Mhm.
that. Like mentally, physically, I'm depleted. I do not want to go do anything. Hence, why I wake up at 4 a.m. and I go and I get it done first thing in the morning, start my day off, and then I feel successful and I feel energized. and then I can, hit the ground running. But I think again, it's up to the individual. You kind of got to look at like where can we maximize the time.
Exactly. No, that's a very good point. Because I used to try to do that to go to the gym after work, and then I found that when I would do that, some hot call would come out, and I would have to be like, go help the guys in the field or something like that. And then by the time it was over, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to go. It's
Yep.
already 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Go home and go into bed.
You got to eat dinner, you got to go to bed. Yeah, 100%. But maybe for some people it does work.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out like within each person's schedule how we can maybe fit it in. And I think it's also a reminder to anyone who's listening, like you do not have to do it every day. You do not need to do an hour, 2 hours. There's this thing I just learned. It's called the ABC method. And what it is, and I didn't make this up, but I really like it. The A plan is best case scenario. So figuring out what the best case scenario for you is, maybe that's going to the gym 4 days a week, for 45 minutes. And then plan B is like, what is like a step under that like you would still be good to like maintain? And maybe that's going to the gym 2 times a week for 30 minutes. And then plan C is like bare minimum. What is the bare minimum that you can do? And maybe that is going for a 10-minute walk. Just to get outside, get some steps in, maybe it's 10-minute walk a couple times a week. So identifying, okay, A plan is like best case, B plan is a step under, and then C is bare minimum, and just making sure that you at least do the bare minimum.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
like this morning, I didn't want to wake up like we talked about. And what did I do? I just I got up, but then I stretched
hmm
for like 10 minutes before I ate breakfast. And I mean, that's what I could do today. So
Yeah, and then
that's
having
what I
like having that grace, right? It's like that was
did.
success. Like you woke up and you did something for your
Mhm.
wellness, and that's a success. And so I think that if you give yourself like if we say we're going to work out 5 days a week for an hour every day is unrealistic. Maybe you can make it happen for a short period of time, but to start there is really hard. It's like so easy to burn out. So it's like how can we create manageable steps and actions, and then you can build off of that. So if you are doing the bare minimum every day, you're going and walking 10 minutes, it's so much
Mhm.
easier to then work your way up to that B plan and then eventually that A plan. So I
Right,
think that for me, I really like that mentality of like, at least do something, at least do your bare minimum, and that's a success.
right.
Because I think we do get into kind of a shame spiral. If you're not successful at things, then it's like, oh well, now I feel like crap, and like now like I'm like I suck, and like you kind of get in this thing of like now I really don't want to do it, or and so I think that if you
Mhm.
just start somewhere, then that will set you up for success. I know we talked about a little bit offline this idea of burnout. I was hoping that you could give your insights on when you're seeing burnout start to happen and maybe how you can prepare for that.
Well, for me personally, it happened about in between 8 and 10 years in. I got to the point where I was like, I'm fed up with the complaints. I'm trying to do my best to be the best to serve and protect that I can, and getting complaints from the citizens all the time, and then it trickles down from the admin, and then they tell you, oh yeah, we got this complaint on you, and you're like, I thought I did a good job. I mean,
Mm.
and just going to court and your lack of sleep and stressed about a lot of things, I got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna go back to school and find some other career because I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But the best thing that helped me was to look at the end goal, which here in New Mexico we can do 20 years. Well, on the old plan, you could do 20 years. Now it's 25. But I looked at the end goal and I was like, if I leave now I'll look 10 years down the road and I'll be like, oh, I could have been retired, making two incomes or something, and kicking myself in the butt for not sticking around.
Mhm.
And that, and then just asking God if I should stick around, and then my family to see if I needed what I should do. And that helped me stick through it and make it to now. I'm going to 22 years. So yeah, just perseverance.
Yeah. And forward thinking. I like that you said, like, I know myself and I know that if I stop now, that I'll regret that in the future. Um, I think that that is a testament of resiliency, of like, this is really hard, but how can we keep going in a positive way? And obviously, we talked about some of those things that have helped you through. So, that physical wellness aspect of it, your spiritual wellness, being able to kind of push through that like barrier that you were feeling at that 8 to 10 year mark. I know now you are right there. You're right kind of at the end of your career. Retirement is on the horizon. How are you feeling about retirement? How are you preparing mentally for that transition into a new chapter?
Well, I'm trying to look not, I mean, to not self-identify as my career as who I am, but to self-identify of who I am individually, if that makes sense. That my career is not what I did these past 21 years is not who I am as an individual. I guess that's a better way to put it. Um, and I learned that in a resiliency conference we had. One of like a the public safety psychology group. They put on a resiliency conference, and that's kind of what they advised. And so, and then also that's spiritual as well. Like God doesn't say that we are what we do. We are his child, or we are who we are. And so our what we do as a career isn't who we are necessarily.
I think that a lot of people struggle with that. From the conversations that I've had, a lot of people struggle with attaching their full identity to what they do. And so when they do transition out of the career, they feel like they've lost that, like they've lost who they are instead of recognizing that that was what they did and not who they are. And I'm curious to hear like maybe what advice you would give to someone who maybe has attached everything to the career. How do you find that sense of who you are if you've attached yourself so much to what you do?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, I would say my advice would be that you're pretty much like I said. I mean, don't look at what you do for a living as your person.
Hmm.
It's not your personality. It's not your individualism. You're still an individual. And for me, I'm a child of God, number one. And just to think about not as a police chief, because some people like the other day I was at a because I'm the interim chief, in fact, but I was at a city council meeting and one of the citizens came up and was like, how do we acknowledge you, or what rank do we tell you? And I was like, I really don't care about rank, to be honest. That's just something that um the city gave me.
Yeah.
But number one, the only rank I care about is being a child of God. And so that's just there, finding your individualism in yourself and not your career, not your job duty.
Yeah. And I think that that's really empowering because I do think that, I mean, I've had a similar experience where I've wrapped my entire identity into what I do. And I think that to take that step back and say, like, I love what I do and I find fulfillment in what I do, and I love the ability to help other people and to be in service of other people. And those things are something I'm really proud of. But if that goes away tomorrow, I'm
Hmm.
I'm still me. And there are qualities that make me me that have
Hmm.
nothing to do with the career. And I have interests and, ideas and things that make me who I am, not what I do. And I think I struggled with that a lot when I was, earlier in my career. And I think if you can have that separation of like, yes, what I do is important, and yes, I love what I do, but it's not all of me, then
Right,
it makes that transition out of it a little bit easier.
right. I was talking to a new officer the other day, and he asked me about wisdom. He's like, "Give me some of your chiefly wisdom," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll give you some wisdom, but I don't know about chiefly wisdom." But that's what I told him. I was like, "You have to separate work from home." It's, I mean, it's not hard. I mean, it's not easy to do, but whatever happens at home, you cannot bring it to work. And whatever happens at work, don't bring it to your family at home. I mean, sure, you got to have somebody to vent to, and they have to understand that your venting is not complaining or not coming down on them particularly, but you're just releasing it. So I have a friend that I call on the way home from work, and he vents and I vent, we vent back and forth. And by the time you get home, it's about a 30-45 minute drive. You kind of feel better.
I love those words of wisdom. And usually that's always the last question I ask. And you just covered it for me. So I love it. Being able to separate work from home and home from work, but then
Mhm.
also having a community or someone that you can talk to offload some of that stuff. And there is power in being able to talk about these things. So I love those words of wisdom. I'm so happy that you have someone that you can vent back and forth with. I think that that is really important. And to your point, it is the work-life balance and the home, work balance is easier said than done, but I do think it's imperative and it's really important to be able to, disconnect in certain ways and not always be on.
Right. Yeah, like when I first started the career, I would call my mom and I would tell her, "Oh yeah, I did this and did this," and she would get like, "I don't want to hear that." So now I don't really tell her stories because she'd get all scared and be like, "Oh no, that's horrible." And so I just tell my dad. I mean, I guess it's father son thing, but I learned not to tell my mom my mom certain things because she didn't want to hear it, and so
Yeah.
she gets scared, and you don't want her to be scared.
Well, and I think that's an interesting point to make is that like, yes, like find people that you can talk to, um,
Uh,
but it has to be that like mutual relationship because you don't want to impact someone else's wellness, or like if someone, like you said, she's scared or she don't, finding someone who you can relate to,
uh,
who's like willing to listen, who's also, you're willing to listen to them, and having that like collaborative relationship with each other. And maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's your peer support team, or a therapist that you can go and talk to. Like there's lots of different options, and you don't have to just choose one.
Absolutely.
You can have multiple. You could talk to your peer support team and a therapist and a friend or a family
Mhm.
member, if that's appropriate. So, no, I appreciate that insight a lot. I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here and having a conversation about wellness. We have a couple minutes left, so if there's anything we miss, I'll let you take the floor. But otherwise, that's all I have for you. And again, I appreciate you.
I would if you're new, don't let um your outcome, especially like at court. You know what? You do your best, and put your heart and do your job and do that case to the best of your ability. Whatever the outcome is in the court system, in the justice system, don't let it get you down. I mean, learn from your mistakes. And a lot of times I've done that. I've talked to the defense attorneys over the years, and they're like, hey, you messed up here. Do, and a lot of them know that their clients probably did do it, maybe, but you got to learn the system just like everybody else. And so learn from your mistakes and improve, and don't let those little mistakes that you get in court get you down. Just improve yourself, because those can be a big mental breakdown within yourself. So just do your job and go home each day and live life. Don't put yourself as don't put your identity within your work. I'll say that.
Thank you. Really well said. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Of course.